Hey, what's up, everybody? So, I'm on my cell phone, which I don't normally do for these kind of things, but desperate times call for desperate measures. What we have here is I wanted to show you. I'm running a projector onto this board. Whoops. Okay, there we go. I'm running a projector onto this board. Here's the projector this way. You can see it right there. And it's shining on my board. I'm gonna go ahead and trace that out, and we're gonna do a project. So I just wanted you to see firsthand how I'm gonna be doing this here. Alright, we'll get this project started. So, for a little backstory on this project, we were supposed to be going out of state to go to a 5-day work event called Team Week. However, we weren't able to make it because our truck had a ruined CV axle, and I explained this in my previous video if you didn't get the chance to see that. But basically, Team Week is the time for meetings and team building and even out of the office activities. And this year the activity was to go to a place called Board and Brush. So I've never actually been able to go to Board and Brush before, but I thought this was the perfect time for me to go ahead and do this project that I've been wanting to do for a long time. And since we weren't able to make it, we decided what we could do is live stream it. They could stream it on their end, and we could stream it on our end, and that way we could see what each other was up to. The main problem with this project, though, was that I really didn't plan it out well enough. I knew that we were going to be doing a live stream craft, but I really didn't think to do this specific project until it was a little bit later, and then I didn't really allow myself the time, or I didn't really allot myself the time that I needed to really be able to plan it out well enough. So once it came to actually painting it, I decided to go with a nice coat of white paint on there, but the only problem with that was I realized that it started going on way too thick, and I wanted to get more of a whitewashing kind of effect, so I went kind of crazy with the water and added a bunch of that in, but it ended up working out pretty much just the way I wanted to. And I decided that I wanted to go ahead and paint it green, because Indiana is very green, at least where we're at, and that's one of the things that I like most about it here. But it was right about at this point that I realized, uh-oh, I am doing this all wrong. So remember when I talked about it being hasty? Well, that's kind of one of the repercussions here. If I had been thinking it through, or had the time, or given myself the time to had thought it through properly ahead of time, then I would have realized that, hey, you need to do the dark around the edges last, or towards the end of the project at least. So I decided to kind of shift gears a little bit and go with some more of the brighter greens, and I really wanted to basically have it kind of be more brighter in the center and dark around the edges. And at this point I realized this just was not working for me, and I went full Agent of Chaos here. I didn't just thin out the paint a little bit, I just started actually pouring it onto the paint. In the end, Agent of Chaos surprisingly worked for me. And there you can see I was not holding back on pouring it to the palette. So it really kind of thinned out the paint, and shocker, and gave me basically a lot more flexibility to blend it all together, because before it was just, I don't know, it was just like too thick. It's just acrylic paints, but I really wanted to be able to work with it a bit more and to get it to blend together a little bit easier. So I picked yellow because, well, I thought it would help it to brighten it up, but also because I have this very specific memory of seeing a really beautiful sunflower field here once we were first scouting out the area. So basically I just continued on, just kind of darkening the edges and trying to get a little bit more contrast, and that was about it. So once I got to the stage of needing to do the stencil, I went onto a website called DA Font or Da Font. I don't know if really how to say it. I don't know which way is proper. I downloaded the font and put it on my computer. Obviously you can see that I printed it out and I cut it out, and then once I started actually dabbing the paint on, I realized it just wasn't really going to work because the paper was just so flimsy and it was getting soggy. So that's when I decided, hey, I'm just going to have to come back and paint over the letters later. So, and when I got to this part, what I'm doing here is just making the heart. I wanted to do kind of like a 3D raised heart to go onto the board. So I just did where you have a piece of paper, fold it in half, draw on half the heart, and then cut it out. So then when you open it back up, it makes the full heart. And then I just use that as like a template to then trace onto a piece of chipboard and then cut the chipboard out. And bingo bango, I had a heart. So as you can see off to my side here, I have my partially completed board and brush-esque piece. And of course this is painter's tape, and I have it over the text. And what I plan to do is just go ahead and spray paint the edges very lightly, just kind of getting like a misty kind of effect, in hopes to just add another layer onto it. Yeah, I hope it's gonna work out and not get too spatterly, and a little bit more misty is what I'm shooting for. And then of course I'm gonna distress the edges a little bit and get that kind of dialed in the way I want it. And then here comes a car. And then I should just need to touch up the text with a couple more layers of paint because it's kind of too thin. And finally put on the hanging portion on the back of it. And that should do it, hopefully. So yeah, let's get started. So for the spray painting portion, I did get the misty effect that I wanted. I wanted some splatter, but not too much. The problem was with the blue painter's tape, it really did end up leaving a very hard edge when I peeled off the tape. So I did have to go back and kind of spray some over the top to kind of camouflage it. And then I had to go back over it with a piece of sandpaper to kind of then dial it back to kind of erase it off, kind of buff it out a little bit, I guess you could say. But that part I don't have on camera. Again, we come back to kind of it being a hasty project, and if I'd have really planned it out well ahead of time, I would have hopefully thought to do that last, or at least like second to last or something, because yes, the order of operations went out the window on that part. So just need to do a little bit more sanding to try and distress the edges a little bit more. I wanted it to be pretty rustic, so I wasn't going to go too crazy with it. But luckily I had this file on hand because it was actually much more useful than the sandpaper was. And I realized that the sandpaper was going to end up being more for like the fine detail. Actually, it's not a file, but a rasp, really. Anyway, I had some of those on hand, and that worked really well, except for it's very easy to push upwards and splinter it off. And then finally we got here with the painting of the letters. I had to go over it and over it and over it because I don't know what was going on, but the acrylic paint I was using, it was more like a glaze almost. So I had to put on a ton of letters, so I thought I would kind of spare you all of the time that would take to go ahead and do that and cut some of that out. So once I was done with the letters, then I could finally move on to putting on the hooks or hangers, whatever you want to call them. Luckily, I had some of these on hand, so I didn't have to worry about going to the store. And I was, just able to put those right in. I don't have a place to hang it up yet, though, is my problem. I would think to put it here in my kind of like cubby area in the garage, but my walls are already green, so it's not going to stand out that well. But I'll find something eventually, maybe even inside the house. I don't know. Oh, maybe inside my office. And finally, we have the heart, and I just made a little riser out of some chipboard and glued it on. Alright, so I got done with the painting of the outside, I got done with the painting of the text, and I got the heart put on there. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and call it. I don't want to keep working it to the point of overworking it. I think maybe the edges could be sanded down a little bit more. I might do that at a later date, but anyway, are you ready for the big reveal? Here we go! Alright, and I think that's a wrap for today. So overall, I really like it. It's not perfect, but it is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I had the idea. I saw something somewhere. Maybe it was like a sticker, one of those like vinyl stickers you see on the back of somebody's car. I remember specifically seeing one from Oregon that I liked. So I was thinking, you know what? I could actually make that into like a wood decoration kind of thing. I'm getting bitten up by mosquitoes out here. I gotta go put on rub some ice cubes on my legs and put on some calamine lotion or something. So I'm gonna wrap this up, but thanks for sticking around and for hanging out with me while I make this project. And hopefully we'll be back at it again next week. Alright, I'll see you then. Thanks a lot. Bye.